because that's an improvement. Professor, how are you, sir? It's good to see you.
Very good. Glad to be back.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back too. You haven't been in the saddle for a while. Everybody's looking for you.
That's right. I had a spinal injury, but I've come back strong from it. So
Hey, these bull riders have come back from worse. Actually, they don't. Spinal injury is one of the ones they don't come back from. But
well,
yeah, it's good to see you.
to be fair to them, I did not fall off a bucking bronco or something like that. I don't even know what I did. Picked up a piece of paper, probably, or a hardback or something. Anyway, I'm back.
Yeah, yeah, such is the nature. I'm telling you. It's this whole getting old thing, and that's part of what like kind of creeped me out about this episode because this is almost a creepy episode. I've been told we should probably touch base on what the episode is at first before we just start talking. So
Yes.
we're gonna do a paranormal episode today, but with a modicum of a twist because we're bringing in instead of the normal paranormal experts for the show, Brian and John from North Central Illinois, who actually are retired paranormal investigators.
Holy cow.
I've engaged the professor in this conversation because I tell people before, I told you before too, when I'm putting these episodes together, it comes to mind who should I be talking to? And I
Uh,
started thinking of, Brian and John, but I thought, I think you might have a greater perspective, better or a different perspective on this because here's what happened. I'll tell you. Uh, I heard on I saw on Instagram that there was another haunted building in Austin, Texas on
uh,
12th Street because not that we don't have enough. I mean, we got the Driscoll Hotel, we've got the places from the oh God, was it the Servant Girl Annihilator serial killer.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so we've got but it's I started thinking second of all, I'll tell you the first of all in a second, but second of all, I don't know if it's everywhere I've lived, but I think it's everywhere because every city seems to have a place.
Yeah.
Because where I lived in when I moved from Illinois to Virginia, Virginia had this town I lived in Radford. What's up, Radford? Uh, had an insane asylum. That's a nice touch. But
Nice.
when I moved up by Pittsburgh from there, they have haunted cities. They've got more than one. They've got they've got one called Yellow Dog. They've got one called Centralia. But the whole city's haunted. But then I
Holy
moved
cow.
to Seattle. Seattle's got a haunted underground. And then I moved to Austin. And like I mentioned, they've got all kinds of haunted places here. So I
Uh,
think it might be just like everywhere, right?
yeah. Yeah. Well, Russia has Chernobyl. Does that count?
Ooh, that's a different kind of haunted because that's kind of the same, like one of those haunted cities I told you about in Pittsburgh is a former mining town where everybody left because there's a fire burning under the city that hasn't gone out since 1962. That's-
I was born then. My entire life it's been going on.
Right? Exactly.
No.
That's what I was thinking. I was born in the summer of 62 as well. But
Holy
But
cow.
there's and then I was thinking after I heard that 12th Street story, I was upstairs as per usual on like say a Sunday or Saturday night, probably Saturday because it's creepier. I had done everything for the day. I had dinner. I took a shower. I'm getting out of the shower. I'm coming downstairs, getting ready to have a cold beer. It's about 8:15 p.m. It's dark out, and I'm thinking to myself, if I saw something move right now or a ghost, would I want to like conversationally engage them or would I run like the wind? Probably the latter. Probably the latter.
Yes. Well, I've got two of my rental houses. One is a 1922 house, and for the first 3 or 4 years that people lived in it again, it was a single family house before I bought it. Um, I had girls living upstairs, 3 bedrooms upstairs with a bathroom and kitchen stuff. They reported hearing a bunch of stuff and everything, but no one's reported that since. But it's been boys since then, and I think my theory is they've been drunk for the last 25 years, and so
Well,
a ghost would have to pick them up and shake them physically to get their attention. But the other one, I got a Victorian 1886, and the people there now swear that they're hearing stuff all the time in the upstairs. And when they're upstairs, they'll hear stuff up in the attic, footsteps and all this kind of stuff. It's very weird.
it's weird, but it's also curious because it's like, why to like we said, the insane asylum, I get that. Like certain
Yes.
places affect people so deeply, but
Yeah.
it's sometimes, we, for one thing, why do we keep creating ghost stories or keep reinforcing them? And
Uh,
another thing is, why do rational thinking people, I like to think of myself potentially as rational, probably over rational, sometimes lose to that instinct. That
yeah.
gave me the willies it's giving me the willies now thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I think one aspect of it that is definitely that there's something in us that wants to be scared, but I think it's way beyond that for ghost stories, because horror movies or novels or whatever, Stephen King is a trillionaire because of this. In a certain
Yep.
in a different way, roller coasters, something like that. We want to. There's something about humans we want to be scared or need to be scared or something like that. And so I think that's a subset, but I think it's a small one. A lot of people talk about ghost stories or something as if it's all the something about that instinct, but I think it goes beyond that or different than that. It,
Well, I
you know,
think like as I was looking into it, one fact somebody brought up was that, human beings as 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 a species have survived for thousands of years by reacting quickly to danger.
yeah,
So maybe it's just that kind of sense that's still built up in us, because as I say that, you're probably imagining prehistoric sitting around in front of the cave. They hear something in the woods. They're either bolting like hell into the cave or they're going to go out and confront it. But
yeah.
but so I guess the point is instincts mattered more before modern life took over.
Yes, and I think there's something about that just made me think of. I remember the first time I read somewhere that like when the hairs stand up on your neck or something like, you have that weird sensation that sometimes it's something that's not ghost-like, like someone you sense someone's watching you or following you or something like that, and you'll have that weird. And they talk about that as an autonomic response kind of thing, where from animals would put their fur up, make their back up or whatever. It's before thought or separate than thought, and it's kind of funny that almost always the the eeriness aspect is what makes you experience it. I mean, maybe I've been lucky enough not to be around really dangerous neighborhoods or something. Maybe their back is going up all the time because there's gunshots or whatever it is. But
Oh
it's
yeah.
like the kind of stuff that's kind of creeped me out is stuff when it's like that you have a sense you're a dark house at night or something like that. And you get that weird sensation. It definitely seems pre-intellectual or whatever. It's an instinctive
Yeah.
bodily reaction.
And you bring up two good, examples of the fact that it can also be environmental. Like you say, like for example, if you're walking in the dark woods or if you're in a cemetery and it's sunset, it can be that just like exacerbates or exaggerates and amplifies the psychological aspect of it. It's like you're kind of almost expecting it. And
Yeah,
and because that ties back to instinct, and if it's instinct, is it something older in our human DNA, in our wiring. So maybe
right.
we spent too many thousands of years surviving by paying attention to the strange feelings for us to now completely ignore them.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't whether it's a ghost or a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah,
I'm
one,
fleeing, whatever it is.
yeah,
One
I
of
thought about that when I used to hike in the woods in Seattle, and they're like bear country. I'm like, that's that. Why am I here again? I'm
the exactly.
because when I used to and I can't remember his name, but when I lived in Virginia, I moved down there and I was mountain biking in bear country, and some old guy who had a lot of fun messing with the new guy in town, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
But he said you should, like, when you do that again, make sure you ride with like a bell on your bike so that scares him away. You lying sack. That's that attract. He's also the same guy that told me because the skunks were prevalent in Virginia. Fight me
Oh,
if you want. They are. But he told me because I had some around my house. He's like, he said, if you want it, most people don't notice he said it, but if you could sneak up behind and just lift their tail, they can't spray it because they need to plant their feet to spray it. I'm like, you son of a bitch.
well, I think the bear thing sounds a little shake. That sounds like that could be a dinner bell for a bear too. It's just like, come and get
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Here's
I've
Mitch
learned
riding
since
through there. Come and get it. Make sure everybody knows it's supper time.
I didn't know, and this one makes sense to me, and I would believe this, but I've learned recently because my son did a lot of hiking there too, and he would hike with bear spray. It's like not like the little spray you keep in your glove box for
Yeah,
emergencies or whatever for self-defense. It's like an aerosol, like a big aerosol can
yeah,
of it shoots like 40 feet. That I can get behind.
yeah. Yeah. Oh
But
man.
back to the paranormal part of it. But let me ask you: would you want to experience something paranormal?
I don't, if it's half the, I mean, some ghost stories are, I brought up to you that when I saw your notes about this, the movie The Sixth Sense, which I
Oh
thought was
yeah,
really
I
interesting.
remember that.
And it seemed like the setup for the movie going through it is, of course you're scared at first. Of course you wish they'd be gone. The natural reaction is you put the blanket over your head and start praying, even if you're not a religious person, please let this
Oh yeah.
apparition, whatever. But that in that movie, it's like you end up finding out the motives of the ghosts are actually something they need. help or something like that. And so the one subplot is the one ghost is a girl and she's vomiting and it's really horrifying when you first see her. But then it turns out that her mom had been a Munchausen creepy, had poisoned her. And so the girl finds the kid, if anybody's seen that movie, and she ends up revealing the mom's crime. And so it's like you're helping the
Ooh.
ghost, and the ghost is actually benevolent. She shows that videotape when they're at the funeral, everybody is over at the house, and she leads the kid to the videotape, which he pops in, and it plays the scene of the mother poisoning the daughter's soup or something like that that killed her. And so the point of that stuff is, I would like, you'd like to think that mediums and all that stuff, that wasn't in the notes, but you think about that. If I could talk to my dad again, if he wasn't a demon or whatever, if it wasn't,
Yeah, that'd be a letdown to find out.
there's a lot of kind of ghost stuff that can be comforting or whatever. And you'd like to, my mom passed away earlier this year. My dad died about 11 years ago. Love them both, miss them both. I'd love to see them again. Sometimes you dream about them and stuff. So there's some wish fulfillment kind of see a ghost like that. But when you usually think of ghost, it's not that. It's haunting stuff, that's scary or whatever.
Yeah, again, I mean, that's because, like you say, I mean, my mother passed suddenly, like, well, unexpectedly,
Mm.
when she was far too young, and my dad died far too young. It'd be fun to touch base. And plus, they were divorced, like when, maybe
Oh,
15, 10 years before. I would love to get them just together at a table and say, hey, let's just no fighting or nothing. Let's just talk
yeah.
because obviously there was 9 kids, so there was some attraction for a while. So, so, but but my grandparents, I hadn't talked to them, in years. I would love to
Mm.
just touch base and uh and I'm doing the senior citizen thing about tracing my genealogy back. So
Nice.
now I understand a lot more. In fact, for example, I found out my grandpa from farm country on my dad's side, he went through something similar like myself of raising 2 boys alone, but his wife had died. And so
Mm.
he was alone. I mean, just based on the timeline, I could tell he was alone raising 2 young boys on his own. So I could talk with him about that. But but yeah, I mean, and then that movie you bring up, The Sixth Sense, it's not like, some of the movie references like, DT and Holly like to make are movies from the 60s and 70s, and they get upset with me and I don't remember, and I don't remember like names of characters. I'm like, dude,
Yeah,
so you realize that's 50 years ago. I know,
that's
but
right.
the Sixth Sense was only 99, so it's only like 20 some years ago. I would
Yeah.
actually wouldn't mind breaking that up again tonight or
Yeah.
this weekend. Just get, oh wait, it's supposed to storm tonight. That'd be cool.
Ooh. Well, I recently
But I
came
remember,
across it again when I was on the pain meds and stuff for this spinal thing I was having a couple months ago, and it ended up. So I've watched a lot of movies and stuff in the last, more than usual. I couldn't keep my mind on reading and stuff, so I did that. But it holds up. I think it's really a good movie. But
yeah, I
one of the
remember thinking when I
Go ahead.
saw it, that was one of those wow movies. I was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, like at the end.
Yeah, it was a great twist. Shyamalan has not been as good since, I don't think. He's had some decent movies, but that was a great
Yeah, it's
reveal.
too bad. Great
But
name for movies.
yeah, yeah, but I was also thinking that movie kind of walks the line between two aspects of ghost stories, which is a religious kind of worldview or something like that, where you think there's life, your religion teaches you there's life after death, there's some kind of judgment, some kind of justice, and all that.
Yeah.
So uh, those fit in with the religious kind of worldview really well. And then there's the atheist or secular one that still, I think we have, if you're a non-believer and you think everything just stops when you die, there's still a wish fulfillment or all the kind of themes still justice after. It's not fair that Hitler gets away, not gets away, but kills himself, but that's it. That doesn't see, I think that doesn't strike us, no matter how secular you or atheist you are, that feels like something was fundamentally wrong to not have some kind of judgment or something like that afterwards, or some sort of punishment that you can't just escape by the hangman's noose or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's I mean most definitely. I mean you bring up, the Hangman's Noose. I'm sure that a lot of that happened around Texas and because I see, Texas has just had the unique multiple fronts. You know what I mean? Like it goes, we have, the Mexican border, we have the Western expansion border with the Indians, we have then the Civil War border. Then
Mhm.
it's just a very unique opportunity for those kinds of injustices to happen, and you want to believe that if they happened, especially like we're talking about in the Alamo or in the killings in it wasn't San Jacinto, I think it's down by Gonzales where uh, Santa Ana just marched 193 I think U.S. soldiers to their assassination. He promised, he's like, no, don't worry, we'll take care of them. And he marched them to their death. So you'd
Mm.
like to think that some of those people unjustly or wrongly perished, for no reason. I mean, for
Yeah.
what did they do? Because
Yeah.
I still, I mean, I hate to bring this up, but my little sister passed away very young, and
Mm.
I was evidently broken up by it. Still am, but
Mm.
I went and consulted with a young lady. We went and saw this medium in
Mm.
Chicago, and his name was, I think it was like, God, this is gonna, I hate to be obvious, but I think his last name was Moon. But it was like Jimmy, no, Jimmy Choo, something like that. Not the shoes, but Jimmy Moon or something. But he was very famous on like WLS. I'm like, I can't
Wow.
believe I got in to see him. It cost me like
Uh,
$100, but I got in to see him. And I said, I asked him about, my little sister, is she at peace? He's like, she's not there. And he said, so he told me like when people get, killed unjustly or wrongly, or they don't stay in the grave. They give it a second life. And I
hmm.
don't know if he was just telling me that to make me feel better, but but evidently it stuck with me because I still remember it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but some people think they want, like my little sister, I think would want a paranormal experience until it
Right.
actually happened. And
Right.
because
Right.
because and me, I'm not saying I panic, but I'm like, I was mentioning the upstairs story. I'm probably not going to go downstairs and investigate and wearing my gym shorts either. So I would probably be packing at least a flashlight or
Yeah, well,
well,
I think about the in the Bible, every time a ghost appears, or it's not a ghost, it's an angel or whatever, but something what we would think, the
yeah.
first thing they always say is be not afraid, because of course you're everybody is
Well, that,
terrified, even if it's, it's a heavenly light or whatever, and at least the depiction of it is this is a messenger from God or whatever, but it still freaks the hell out of everybody that sees one. So every single time something like that happens, the first word is always don't crap yourself, translated
well,
into King James.
that's a good point that you bring up for people who are listening to this. Maybe they'll get that from this. If nothing else, first things first, assume it's nothing, uh, malicious.
Yeah,
But speaking malicious, it's like, we talked about, it's like the old places. Why is it the old places like abandoned buildings,
right.
hospital, well, schools, uh,
Yeah,
jails, I get. Old hotels? Like we got the Driscoll in downtown Austin, and it's supposedly haunted by the daughter of one of the owners, the first owners of it, that fell down the steps while chasing a ball, and
uh,
she died when she was like 7 years
man.
old. It's like,
Oh man.
but forgotten places you come across them like, it seems like the history kind of lingers emotionally,
Yeah,
and sometimes I think humans can. Do you think there's any way or any reason like that Jimmy Choo guy or whatever?
right.
Humans can sense tragedy subconsciously.
That's a great question. For me, I feel like I am a Christian. And that's one thing that seems really intuitive to me, or not intuitive, but not counterintuitive. It makes sense to me that if there is life after death, it sort of makes sense that there might be lingering, that spirits would linger, especially if something's done, badly or something like that. I think that if you sort of have a worldview that there's cosmic justice at some point for that kind of stuff, that does
Hmm.
it just strikes me as it's more logical than not, or it's more likely than not to have something kind of left over. A true atheist thinking everything is gone and done, none of that makes any sense at all, except for as a brain, it's either wish fulfillment or some kind of chemical reaction or something like that. And so that's less romantic in some way, or
No,
whatever.
no, no. That's
That's
one of the reasons I wanted to discuss this with you because I wanted a more analytical, at least or partially analytical approach. And as we're talking about this now, I feel more hopeful. It's
yeah,
goofy, but if something were to happen, I'd want to understand because
right.
a lot of the ghost stories, like you mentioned in the Bible, uh, centered around morality and meaning,
Yeah,
and a lot of the ghost stories involved unfinished business or justice or guilt or a warning. Uh, Unfortunately, some revolve around revenge,
yeah, yeah.
but
Well,
there's
yeah, I think
unresolved loss too.
as an English professor, I mean, teaching, Hamlet's one of the best couple, I don't know, Macbeth or Hamlet, I got a couple favorites there from Shakespeare that seem like the most iconic plays in the Western canon. And of course, Hamlet starts with the whole point of that play is that Hamlet's dead father appears to him on the ramparts and tells him, Claudius, the bad guy, killed me and married your mother. And, and the whole point of the play is you're, he says something about revenge, this murder, foul murder, and unnatural, or something like that. The whole point is, it seems like with ghost stories, most ghost stories, especially older ones that were told in or by a society that had a fairly shared religious worldview, um, it's intertwined with justice or something like that. You're
Oh
being
yeah,
haunted because of someone you hurt, or someone, the ghost in Hamlet is setting it up to set Hamlet after Claudius to, make sure avenge me kind of thing, something like that.
yeah.
So it feels
Set it in
like, and that
motion.
is that is kind of, I think, comforting in some way, or the possibility of fixing a wrong that otherwise is unfixable. We lost our chance when that jerk got away, when Hitler killed himself or whatever, that we don't have it. Or when there's a victim or a someone who dies too young and for bad circumstances, we'd like to see those scales balanced. And
Well, yeah, like you're mentioning, the older religious societies believed that the dead remained relevant, either spiritually or morally. But I mean, because I'm not that deeply into it now, but do you think modern secular culture still tells similar stories?
I think so. I mean, now if you think about it, it's displaced toward, you would have in a religious society, it would be part of, it would be taught as if it was true, as if it were true. It was part of your religious and your literature and everything else. And in a secular society, think of how it's kind of displaced mostly toward entertainment. I mean, we mentioned Stephen King.
Yeah,
There's hauntings of all kinds of different kinds and stuff like that, or movies, I mean, there's a subset of horror movies that are just weirdly just bloody, and there's something really creepy about that that's doing so. And a lot of times it's a naked woman that gets stabbed or whatever. You don't have to be Freud to figure something out there. But all the kind of stuff, The Sixth Sense and a bunch of other, in fact, to return to The Sixth Sense, that movie, I think it's partly effective because it definitely seems to have a religious undertone, because there's life after death and it kind of takes that for granted, and there's kind of a movement toward justice and it does that too. But you notice there's nothing in that at all about any spiritual, there's not an angel that appears, or there's not a he Bruce Willis doesn't go to heaven, or
no,
whatever, explicitly. And yet it does give you that sense, now I can move on. Once he realizes he helped the kid and the kid has helped the ghost, and he's gotten closure, so it's half therapy. It's not necessarily, but then he goes on and he sort of disappears, and then they close on showing the old wedding video that had been a theme throughout the thing, where he and his wife were together and it's really happy. But it's sort of, so that's sort of like a heaven image or something like that. We were married on earth and we're happy after the life, or what, but there's nothing at all about that. There's nothing explicit, which makes sense if it's entertainment and you're trying to sell tickets. You don't get, smart people don't, I mean, Michael Jordan doesn't become political because Republicans buy tennis shoes too, and a movie that's about death or the afterlife. If you're smart, most people now are probably more. I think we're leaning more toward atheism or secular society. So it doesn't make sense to make a movie that only people will buy in or will come and see it or something, are people that have a religious worldview or something. So I don't know. That's a bunch of thoughts, kind of chaotic. But what does that make in?
no, you're right though, because I was brought up Roman Catholic, strongly Catholic. I was baptized in St. Peter's Church in Chicago, and I
Wow.
was an altar boy growing up, and
You had me
all
at
those.
9 kids, Mitch.
Yeah. So, how many kids in your family? 9 kids, Catholic. You have to say it like that. But but your point speak to, I think, is more about it's it removes the stigma, or tries to remove the stigma about these ghost stories being about fear, and through history they've been more about meaning. There's something going on. Don't you don't it's a lot of times still, and I'm sure of like some of the stories and some of the religious beliefs and things we heard growing up. Certainly myself, you connect death with unfinished moral business, and
Hmm.
sometimes we still it's in a way, it's also, and I think I went through in a way myself, that these stories are one way humans process, the guilt, or the mortality. But it's always been, ghost stories survive because humans, I think, struggle with the idea that death ends everything. And of course, I've had, now, since according to the Social Security Department, I can see death coming. But 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 so I've thought about it. I'll be honest with you. I've thought about it. Is that it? I mean, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not, and I've said it before. But what is it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I don't know, this might be too personal to talk about or something like that, but I was at my dad's, I was gonna say bedside, but he was in a recliner. He was in hospice at home at their house, but I was there when he died. And we missed my mom's death because she had been kind of hanging around, and my sister and I finally went home. And then in the middle of the night, an hour later, you get the call and you go back to the hospital. But I've seen a bunch of, like, for example, this is gonna sound weird. My wife is an idiot about cats. We've had a bunch of cats over the years, so I've been at the bedside of dying cats. All of it.
Yeah, but
It just
it's going to
it
be
feels
sound weird because you're courting death right now if she listens to this.
That's right. That's true. But my point is, I felt like something, and I've read a whole bunch of stuff about this and heard talked to other people. If you're there when a loved one or a human dies, there's something that felt different to me, and obviously that's not proof in some way or something like that, but it felt like something was gone. There is a soul or something about that person in a way that it didn't with the animals. It just felt like, I missed the animals and stuff like that. And I was very sad when they finally relaxed, and
That's a
that's
good point. Yeah.
but that felt like something. I can't believe that dad is gone, that he disappeared the way that I can believe the cats disappeared. And that has nothing to do with religious training or anything else. It just feels like it seems to me that that's some kind of evidence, but I wouldn't, testify in court or what. It's not like you can prove it, but I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of personal because I don't know if you've been with someone when they passed or whatever, or if you know people that have, but I've heard more often than not from people in that case, and is that there's something that happens there, and the thing doesn't feel what's left after they die, something real left. And this thing that's left with you, the body or whatever, is not them in some
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
fundamental way. And if that's the case, that opens, and I think ghost stories and everything else, a lot of that stuff arises from that. There's something that's A, not right about that, or B, not true about that, that they just died and there was nothing there. They just returned to the earth or whatever. Uh,
Well, I mean, I think and it jumps. I don't say it, that jumps, but it keeps moving forward into like, modern life still needs that kind of mystery. I mean, that's why now our iterations of it now, and I'll admit it, I've done the haunted tours in downtown.
yeah.
Uh, I did a walking tour with a couple of friends came down from Detroit and they wanted to do it. It was around Halloween, and so we did it. And true
Nice.
story, I got to know the tour guide so well. He
Mhm.
actually came and joined me on a Halloween episode. Great episode. I think it was 2 years ago. So check it out if you guys can find it. But
Yeah.
so you still got haunted tourism. You got the YouTube investigations. Please, really. Uh, the younger generations, I think, are discovering that kind of mystery.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, do you think modern life now is a bit too sterile? Do we still need unexplained things?
It does seem like it. There feels like I've heard people talk about that, even like once the explorers had kind of finished exploring the Earth, sort of. Now I guess there's the Marianas Trenches left or something like that. But the
Oh, that's
idea
too bad.
there was a big piece of the imagination of the West, of Europe and stuff like that, of that the new world was literally a new world. And it was like that sense of who knows what's there and everything. And once that stuff gets explored and explained, it does feel like I do think that a secular society, either, like I said, as a Christian, I feel like it's because there's more to the world than the matter stuff, the material stuff. But if there's not, if I look at it from an atheist point of view, it still seems like, I think you're right. There's some mystery or we have a lot of intuitions that there's more than the stuff we can understand, and it doesn't feel satisfying. But again, that might be my bias as a religious person. I think it's unsatisfying, but that might be my indoctrination talking or something.
Well, it seems like the world has just generally gotten, I don't want to say colder, but it feels a little bit colder. Like,
Yeah.
everything, I'm sure it's something to do with all the fake communication we do now with social media and
Yeah.
with technology taking such a forefront the way it has. And I wanted to ask this question, but I don't think it can. But has technology stripped too much of mystery out of life? I don't think
Yeah.
it can.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting between you and I and M. Night Shyamalan, somebody to do a really good story in which, and maybe it's out there and I haven't seen it yet. So if you've seen this story, you can go to mitchwonders.com. At the bottom, there's a contact us link. Let me know. But
Nice.
I'm still waiting for the movie where like an Alexa, I can't say it out loud because she'll respond, uh, like is a sentient being or SIRI starts walking around or it gets
Yeah.
so, but it'll be malevolent. I know it will because it's got too much power, too much access to. In fact, we might be writing a storyline for somebody. But
Yeah.
I think maybe humans need mystery more than we care to admit.
Yeah, I think, and what you saying that just made me think about like a lot of Stephen King stuff has some modern technology or something like that that
Hmm.
becomes creepy stuff. I've heard or vaguely remember stories where there's an answering machine. You start getting messages from a dead person or something. Someone's left a message, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
like
this
that.
modern thing. Or even Christine, that stupid, it's a '57 Chevy or whatever it is, and it becomes
Oh yeah, those
habited
are
by
good
a spirit. And
stories.
someone. So you can think of all those kind of we used to think of witches at a cauldron and they were, putting in the eye of Newt or whatever, and then a ghost appears. And now it's and talented writers or thinkers end up making it something there's nothing worse. And I think I remember hearing, this might have been a dream I had when I was writing short stories. I thought about like a baby monitor. When we first had our first child, we were so afraid. She had some
Yep,
health.
I've heard that one too.
You hear the baby monitor from the other room, and then what would you think if there's a voice there coming through that baby monitor and you're racing the room, there's no one there. It's like, that can make my neck stand up right then. And it's a most modern technology that's a completely explained. We know this is a Wi-Fi signal going through the house or whatever, but it still triggers something really basic and
See, but aren't you falling into your own trap wherein we just established a little while ago that first of all, don't presume it's bad. Maybe
right,
it's somebody trying to help. Maybe it's
right,
a distant relative, a past relative's like, hey, by the way, you guys, heads up, the baby's sleeping and
yeah,
tongues kind of,
yep.
oh wow. But if I think a lot of it, like you just built a great atmosphere, but a lot of the Gothic literature was great at building that atmosphere.
Mhm.
Campfire stories you know,
Right.
the haunted settings like you're just talking about with Stephen King and M. Night. There's some really good work. I'm getting the creeps
Yeah.
right now because I don't know if you remember, but Blair Witch gave me the willies.
Oh
The Blair
yeah.
Witch Project.
That's a
Oh,
great example. A video camera, does that kind of found footage kind of stuff that wasn't possible
yeah.
before you had video. That whole plot is
Whew.
driven by that modern thing that's way back to. That's cool.
Well, maybe the great story or the ghost stories, maybe not the great ones, but they survive because humans are great storytelling creatures.
Yeah.
And like, we've told some stories today. It's working. It's for me, it's the morning and it's sunny outside and I'm getting a little bit of the willies. But
The
oh, speaking of, I'm really wearing my Willie shirt.
guy wearing the
What?
Willie shirt's got the Willies.
Oh
Nope.
God, I can't believe I said that. Now I'm in trouble. Okay. Oh God, good luck to you, Willie. It's his 93rd birthday coming up pretty soon. Wait, maybe he's 94th. He's already turned 93. Isn't that impressive though? 93. That
Yes.
gives us hope because we talked
Yeah.
about we can see it coming, but maybe we got 30 years and not 20.
Well, how cool would it be to put a button on this podcast if, as we were talking about Willie, he died that
Oh, no, don't even. I knew you were
So,
going to say it. Don't say it. Damn it, straight to hell. If this happens, this is to be the last episode because I can never do it again.
I remember just one stupid thing that's off topic. My dad said we were watching the whatever World Series it was that was in California, and Dad was like, he said, I wouldn't care if those guys, they could have an earthquake right now. And, I'd be perfectly happy with that. So, and then they had that famous earthquake in the middle of the game. And then he said, within a year or two of that, he said, we were watching Washington Redskins play when they were the Redskins, darn it. And Joe Theismann, who he didn't like, he said, oh, I wish that guy would just break his leg. He hated Joe Theismann. And
Oh,
he broke his
oh,
leg like one series
oh.
later. It's like, Dad,
Uh,
don't say anything else about any.
and that was a bad break too. That was like that
Yes,
one
it
almost made me
was.
vomit my warm Miller beer and watching that in
Exactly.
Seneca,
Don't
Illinois
show
with.
the replay.
Oh gosh. Well, I think like you say, and kind of sum it up, and I'm not saying like every story is true. Like the 12th Street one, I don't think
Yeah.
is true. And I'm not saying that every feeling is imaginary either, but humans react to places for reasons we don't fully understand, which is fine. And maybe that's why ghost stories survive. Maybe that, maybe every generation keeps recreating or reinforcing them because mystery itself is deeply human.
Yep. That's a good point.
But I will also say to completely wrap this up, if, like I mentioned last Saturday, if something moves in my hallway at 2 in the morning, they probably got themselves a condo because because I'm leaving.
Don't disclose it to the realtor. Get out and get it on the market. Let someone else be haunted.
That's funny you mentioned that because I did ask my realtor. I don't know if I meant to, but I don't know if it did. But I asked my realtor before I moved into what? What are you laughing at? I asked my realtor, and I think you should. It's because, I want to know, did somebody die before I moved in here?
Right. Right.
I
There's
mean,
disclosure laws in a lot of states. If like a murder happened or something like that, you have to disclose it. And it's because a lot of people, I think, have that idea that,
you're right. You're right. I found that out. There is a disclosure law. They have to tell you. I mean, and my third thing was, are there cracks in the foundation? So it was like,
there you go.
ghosts. Did somebody die here? And are there cracks in the foundation? But
There you go.
but I figure I covered all the bases. But still, boy, I still see some. Hey, let me ask you real quick. We'll wrap this up. But what about signals, like spiritual signals? Like, for example, my little sister that I mentioned one time I was out on my deck doing some homework or a call, whatever, and I saw a few cardinals, and she's like, "Oh, that's a good omen." I'm like, "What the hell? What? Do you believe in that kind of stuff?"
I I don't
It's
know.
not find a penny, pick it up stuff. This is like spiritual omens.
Right. Yeah, I think that's I think I tend toward an open mind about that stuff. I think there's if you have a certain mindset, especially a really scientific and secular mindset, everything can be explained by everything else. And boy, does that make, like you said, it takes the mystery, the romance, a bunch of stuff out of life. And I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think a lot of it too just feels like that stuff over explains in a way that takes humanity out of people. I mean, Freud or those kind of things, they always end up saying, you're nothing but a bundle of chemicals and meat, and all of your instincts can be explained by, you've got an instinct to mate or an instinct for territory or an instinct to whatever, and it reduces people to animals. I mean, it really there's a certain, creepy kind of, you think you have intentions, you think you have, and I think that kind of all kind of boils together. An omen, a leftover, someone sending you a signal for immediately after they die or something like that is a very cool.
I
If
gotta
people
stop.
can't see this, they're going to wonder about some
I,
inappropriate responses from me, and they need to see
got,
the visual
I gotta
version.
stop. I gotta stop playing with the Zoom reaction emojis. But anyway,
Yes,
Professor, it's been fun. It's been fun. I'm glad to see you back again. I'm glad to see you back at the helm, as they say, back on the stick.
great to be back.
And it was a good episode. And I feel bad because I don't know if people saw me toasting with a little ice water in my Mitch Wonders
Nice.
travel mug. I just want to bring up, you can't get this on the merch store. Sorry about that. But because it was a gift from a listener and sometimes guest, DT. And thank you, DT. But you can get items on the merch store. And by the time this comes out, you'll see new summertime inventory on the merch store.
Cool.
And I promise one day I'll stop saying this, but also on the merch store, there's one shirt in there that's designed specifically for, if you buy that shirt, all proceeds go directly to the National Veterans Foundation, a
Wow.
great foundation staffed by and serving our nation's veterans. And so if you want to support that, it's in there. And uh,
Very
and
cool.
also if you go to the updated webpage, there's whiskey reviews, huh?
Mm,
Yeah,
good.
and barbecue reviews, places I've been and places I hope to get. So there's all kinds of cool stuff on there. And every recent episode is on there. So go give MitchWonders.com a shot. And Professor,
Nice.
again, great hanging with you today. Great perspectives like I thought it would be. And I look forward to when we can do it again.
Absolutely. Same here.
See you next time.
See you, Mitch.